All right, good evening. Good evening, all. Can I have your attention, please? Thank you very much. Eyes on front, please. Thank you. It's like gathering a school assembly, this, isn't it? There's some seats at the front here, all round at the back. So, first of all, my name's James Ski. I'm the founder of Sales Confidence, the individual organizer behind pulling this all together with the help of our wonderful sponsors and a lot of individuals behind the scenes that help us out. But the first thing is, I know some people are still hesitant about getting out and about, but I would like to pat yourselves on the back and give yourselves a round of applause because you're outside the house. So give yourself a round of applause for being outside the house. We've got a wonderful evening in store for you tonight. So not only do we have 3 7-minute speakers, but we're also going to announce for the first time ever the top 50 SDR leaders in the UK and the top 50 SDRs. And I think it's been really powerful, and I've loved seeing it, that, you know, some of the VPs, you've brought your teams along. I think that's a great piece of kudos for supporting individuals in your team. It's not easy being an SDR right now, as we know. So for those of you that have brought your team along, I want to say massive kudos to that. We're gonna have a few individual talks, and then we're gonna go into nominations. But before I start, I would like to invite 2 of the co-hosts up, just to say a few words about these individuals. The first, Shabri, who is the founder of SalesWorks. Shabri's been at the forefront of training, developing not just SDR teams, but sales teams that many of you have been part of. And she's been a wonderful advocate for also us creating the SDR Leaders event. So it was only in 2020 that we decided to start promoting the SDR function, the leadership function in particular, and it's come a long way since then. And then next I'm going to invite up Elaine Tyler, who is the wonderful founder of Venetrix. And Venetrix is the UK's #1 sales talent recruitment business. And I know many of you in the room have been placed by her and her team. Let's have a shout out for Venetrix. Where's the Venetrix team? There you are. And where's the SalesWorks team? CC, Shabri, brilliant. All right, so Shabri and Elaine, if you want to come up to the stage. So we're coming up with the order as we go. Elaine, do you just want to say a few words, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Shabri.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So I'm Elaine Tyler, CEO and founder of Venetrix. It's my great pleasure to be one of the sponsors of the event this evening because, number one, I really love having the opportunity to recognize great talent. So as a preemptive, well done to everybody who makes it into the top 50. Massive congratulations, John, on your grit, determination, and passion, and all the skills have got you there. And secondly, I love to celebrate too. So delighted to be a sponsor and look forward to catching up with you all later. Woo!
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to take a few minutes. As James said, I said to him about 12 months ago that I was seeing huge growth in the role of the SDR manager. And I was getting about 5 messages a week from sales leaders asking me, do you know any good SDR team leads? Do you know any good SDR managers? And it seemed to me as if demand was outweighing supply. So as SDR teams were growing and companies were recognizing the productivity and importance of these teams, people were starting to develop talent internally. And they were progressing to team leads, managers, and now what we're seeing is directors and VPs of sales development as well, which I think is a huge testament to that role in itself. And it struck me that we needed a dedicated event for this role. It's so nuanced and it's sometimes quite lonely because there's only one or maybe a handful of SDR managers in any organization. And so I said to James that I would like to do an event for this. So he agreed not just to do an event, but also to give that role the recognition and reward that it deserves. So I'm so excited today to celebrate and congratulate the top 50 SDR managers. But as we look at the sales development function as a whole, I truly believe that nowhere is change happening faster than at the top of the funnel. And actually, it's really important that we understand what best in class looks like. And so over the summer, we partnered with 2 of the other sales confidence sponsors. So we partnered with Gong and Aircall, and we actually commissioned a state of sales development benchmarking study. Now, there's loads of stuff out there in the US. There's the Bridge Group and some amazing stuff. But as we know, the US and the UK, it's not really apples for apples. And so, we decided to do a benchmarking study, and I'm a firm believer that sales is a science, not an art. And like all good scientists, we need data and we need to benchmark our work. And so I know Adam, Sean's in the room actually. Sean from Aircall, can you give us a wave? Yeah, Sean's going to talk about the report, so I'm going to try and not steal everything he's going to say. But I just wanted to call out 3 insights from the report that really, really stood out for me. We had about 400 respondents, and if you haven't seen the report, then you can head over to Aircall's website. But what was really unique about this is we didn't just ask leaders, we asked SDRs too. And so there's some contrasting views in that report that are really interesting to unpack. So my 3 takeaways. The first was the SDR's presumed career pathway. So SDR managers in the room, hands up. Okay. If you didn't, it's a worrying low number of SDR managers. Okay. Okay. And if you and of those SDR managers, keep your hands up if you started as an SDR. Okay, so most of the SDR managers, I think all of you started as an SDR. What was really interesting from the report is it showed that only 17% of SDRs look at team lead as a next step and a pathway. That was really interesting for me because the data showed that most SDRs still believe that AE is the next step. So for any leaders in the room, companies can likely do a better job at showing what that next step and providing more options to their reps. The next was around technology, and we heard that teams using between 3 and 8 tools were most likely to achieve target and overperform in their role. And we looked at the different channels that SDRs were using, and this really surprised me. Only 4% of SDRs are using video in their outreach. Now, we all hear that LinkedIn is getting noisy, email inboxes are filling up, and so cutting through the noise is more important than ever before. And you can use great tools like Drift, and James didn't pay me to say that, but you can use great tools like Drift to help with video. And the last was we asked leaders to rank their priorities, and this was really interesting to me. 55% of leaders ranked their number 1 priority as improvement in messaging. The next was growth in their SDR teams and hiring, and Elaine's doing a great job at helping companies with doing that. And the last was launching an ABS strategy. But what we learned from this report, and the point that I want to make, is there are hundreds of companies out there right now that are working through the same priorities and that are dealing with the same challenges, whether it's about org structure, whether it's about tools, whether it's about compensation. And so sales development is accelerating faster than it ever has done before. The SDR leadership role is one of the highest in demand right now. And so what we can expect is that the sales confidence community is going to get bigger and better, and I'm really, really excited for that. Thank you.
If you're not connected with these 2 individuals, make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. They're 2 people that have really inspired this community to get to this point that it's at. So now we're going to head on to the talks. I really do ask that you give your full attention to the speakers and just zip it for the next half an hour. It's not easy being up here speaking. It's a lot easier sitting there drinking. So just do give it your attention, please. So the first speaker I'm going to invite up to the stage is Sean Hayes, who is the director. Round of applause. Director of Business Development at Aircall. He's going to be speaking about SDR like nobody's watching, how letting your guard down can serve your sales career, creating an environment that allows and encourages vulnerability. Sean's held a number of roles at companies like Latam and Too Good To Go. He joined Aircall in 2019 and is excited by the project and the opportunity to grow a hyper scale-up business. And you would have seen that Aircall just opened up their London office, so another round of applause to Aircall. And Sean, you're on your way up. 7 minutes starts now.
Hi. It's nice going from like 18 months sat in my own room by myself to talk in front of like 100 people. It's pretty cool. Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Sean, says it there. Director of Business Development at Aircall. And as James actually said, we've just recently opened our UK office. Didn't deserve a round of applause for it. I didn't do anything about that, to be honest. I just came and took a picture in front of a phone booth. But the talk tonight is very much inspired by the UK team, in the sense that, well, firstly, they're doing a really good job. The survey that Shabri was talking about before, it actually said that average quota attainment among SDRs in the UK is about 70%, whereas the UK team, Aircall, is actually consistently getting over 100, which is not normal. A few of them aren't that normal either, to be honest. But, you as a sales leader, you look at it and you think, what are they doing that's scalable? So firstly, you look at numbers, and I looked at numbers, and they were all pretty straightforward in terms of inputs. So then I looked at them, a very pretty sight. I'm looking at them now. And I watched them in the office and observed them. And I saw like a sense of freedom, basically. I saw that they were making calls, sending videos, they were trying things out, they were laughing at their shit calls as well, and just like, they're pretty chilled about it. They were basically, they weren't fearing judgment from each other, or from managers, or anyone. And so I kind of came up with this very catchy title, SDR, that no one's watching. But the funny thing is, we actually receive, when we speak to prospects, one of the key objections we get from sometimes SDR managers is, I don't want to record calls, because that's what we do, by the way, we're a phone company. I don't want to record calls, I don't want to track calls, because I don't want my team to feel like they're being watched. But SDRing like no one's watching is not about not being watched. It's about not caring about the people that are watching you. So, why should you SDR like no one's watching? I've got 4 reasons. 4 reasons. Okay, the first reason. One thing that it unlocks is hard work. Sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? It's like the worst kept secret ever that hard work works, but everyone remembers at school, you'd have like an exam, you'd go in, you'd be like, did you revise? Like, yeah. You'd be like, cool. All right. Do you do your homework? Yeah. Like, yeah. Gimp. But like, if you look back at it, it was basically like a very immature culture of people taking the path of least resistance, essentially. They knew that there was a huge upside to working, but they chose not to take it. And it's also probably a little voice in the head that was saying, like, what if I actually put the work in, but I don't succeed? And we're adults now, in body, if not mind, for most of us, but like, we're adults, and that voice is still there, of course, but you find yourself in a job where somebody actually said to me in the bar before, it's like, oh, it's cliche, but you get what you put in. But you really do. Like, whether you're making the most calls, whether you're like spending your Sunday planning for your week, whether you spend 30 minutes at the start of the day prospecting, whether you read sales books or you listen to like a sales development podcast on the way to work. It sounds very like you'd be like a SWAT, but it's cool to be a SWAT in sales. Like, I genuinely think it is. Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote a book called Outliers. And in Outliers, he talks about what makes successful people successful. Hi, welcome. What makes successful people successful? And he looks at people from like Bill Gates to Michael Jordan, and they're all very good, they're all very talented, but the thing that ties them all together is 10,000 hours principle, which is basically you need to put 10,000 hours of work in something to be an expert. Hard work beats talent when talent isn't working hard, but I can genuinely say, like as a manager, and I probably speak for many others here, that that's like the number one thing that we really value in an SDR. So hard work, cool. Number 2, creativity. Very important. Everyone here sends videos, maybe, apparently not. Videos, voice notes, GIFs, and whatever. Success in the SDR role right now or in sales is a moving target. What worked yesterday doesn't work today. What works today won't work tomorrow. Like, you need to fucking shake things up a little bit. Well, in fact, Will Kettle, in the green cardigan, if you haven't seen him, smart casual. He actually came across recently, he was prospecting for a recruitment company, and there was someone in the recruitment company titled a Director of Business Ingredients, which I don't know what that means. I've never come across before, and Will didn't know what it meant. So Will sent her a picture of some broccoli, which was nice. And like, it seems silly, but it is a pattern interrupt. It worked, it sparked interest. And like, that's the kind of thing, put yourself in an awkward position, like relax, try something out, let you shine through a little bit, which brings me on to the third point, authenticity. So another not very well kept secret in the sense that everyone's like, be yourself. But to get deep, like, it's very hard sometimes to be yourself if you fear that the thing that you being yourself is not the thing other people expect you to be. So how that comes through when you're SDRing is you might be, basically it's like cliches. You'll send emails or you'll have scripts that are like talking about efficiency and proficiency and the cloud. Step back, give yourself the space to like let you shine through, essentially. Go in tomorrow, read your emails. If you wouldn't say it, then don't say it to a prospect. And that includes email sign-offs. Like, I actually really want to use this opportunity. Can we have a show of hands for email sign-offs? Do we have any best wishes in the house? Best wishes, okay. I'm passing no judgment. Do we have any all the best? We've got one all the best, two. Kind regards. Oh, a lot of kind regards. Okay. Do we have any best? I'm a best. Funnily enough, do we have anybody, is anybody a thanks? Thanks? Oh, we got some thanks. Thanks. Okay. Well. The number one, in terms of reply rate, in terms of getting a good reply rate, because apparently sign-offs can actually affect reply rate, the best reply rate is a simple thanks. Because nobody wants to book a demo with someone that says kind regards. Like, honestly, come on. Sorry, I know the people that are like, no one wants it. Okay, we have one last point, which is, what's my one last point? My girlfriend said, take cue cards. Generally, creativity or not seeking perfection. This is important. So I'm going to use video as the example. So in our survey, it said that 4% of BDRs are using video. Yet, it's proven that it can increase reply rates in your cadences by 4 times. So why are we not using it more? Because, and it's very simple. If you've sent a video here, maybe just one, you know the story. It's like, I'm going to sit down. Yeah, so you sit in front of your camera, and you're like, hi. No, wait. Yo. No. And then like, I sent a video, I sent like 30 videos once, and I realized that I had Stalin and Mussolini on my bookshelf. And I was like, yeah, I studied history today. Basically, it takes you 20 minutes to do a 30-second video. You send it, you don't get a reply. Like, this doesn't work. This isn't scalable. Of course it doesn't work. Perfection isn't scalable. Aim for, you might have heard it before, but like, aim for like 80% good. Not with your quota, aim for 100%. But like, when you're sending something, aim for 80% good. Because if it's good, it was fine. Like, if it doesn't work, iterate, try. And ultimately, coming back to the first point, the more you try something, the better you'll get it anyway. So we have the 4 points. We have, I've forgotten them again. What was it? Hard work, creativity, authenticity, and not seeking perfection. And if you're a BDR manager or leader and you're thinking, I've got all that, then sorry for boring you. If you want it, then, and how do you create that environment? Starts with you, really. Like, ultimately, you need to be vulnerable. If you make mistakes, you need to admit to them. Don't take yourself too seriously. If you fail, like, fail in front of your team. Listen to your calls with the team. Like, don't expect them to be vulnerable in front of you if you can't be vulnerable in front of them. And then, finally, if you're an SDR, you go into work tomorrow, hopefully not too hungover, but thank you for the free bar, James. When you go into work tomorrow, like, first start off by not judging any other SDRs as good or bad. It's not that binary. And in turn, you might stop giving yourself that judgment, which is quite a healthy thing to do. Because what makes an SDR good is really that ability to let their guard down, to work hard, be creative, authentic. What was the 4th one? Not seeking perfection. And basically to SDR like no one's watching. Thank you very much.
Awesome first talk.
Oh yeah, cheers.
Don't lose that.
Cheers, mate.
That was a great start. Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for your attention. So next up, our second speaker, we've got Maddy, who is SDR team lead at Webby. She's going to be talking about going from inbound to outbound in 90 days. talking about the transition she's made in her team from going inbound to outbound, which I know many of you had to make. Talking about prioritization, upskilling the sales team, and learning as you go. Just a bit of background. She's originally from New Zealand, and she moved into the UK in 2018 after earning a master's in biosciences from the University of Auckland. She started her sales career at Chattermill before moving into her current role at Webby. Over to you. Round of applause, please.
James. I actually mentioned to James that it's been on my sales bucket list for a really long time to speak at a sales conference event, so I'm really excited to spend the next 7 minutes or so with you guys. As James mentioned, I am the SDR team lead at Whereby. We're a remote-first video conferencing company. So when I first joined the team at Whereby, we'd been really fortunate to have a pretty strong inbound pipeline. This was largely due to the fact that the brand was already pretty well known around the world for our meetings product. And there was also a surge in demand for video conferencing, thanks to that little thing we call COVID. But one of the biggest kind of challenges we were facing at the time was how were we actually going to get in front of the people that had never heard of us before? How could we generate more kind of leads and meetings for our account execs? And ultimately, how could we just gain more control over our pipeline? So the good news is we managed to do this fairly quickly, with over half our pipeline being driven by outbound in just 90 days. So this is exactly what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to kind of touch on 3 key things, going with numbers here with Sean, that I think will make a massive impact if you guys are thinking about going outbound. As Joe mentioned, I'm from New Zealand, so I really wanted to avoid using the kind of typical sports analogy you usually hear at a sales talk. I'm really not the biggest fan of sports. So I got thinking, what better way for a Kiwi in London to talk about sales than Lord of the Rings? So here we have our plan of attack. We've got number 1, develop your gang of hobbits or upskill and coach your team. Number 2, you want to gather your swords and your daggers or build your tech stack. And number 3, you just want to head out into the Shire, build some sequences and get prospecting. So first and foremost, when I first joined the team at Whereby, I was coming in to manage a team of 6 existing SDRs. Don't tell my team over in the back there, but I can't lie, this was a little daunting. Not only was I coming in to manage a team that didn't know or kind of trust me, majority of them were about to move entirely from working on inbound to outbound. So in terms of the kind of approach I took with them, I think if you're an SDR manager yourself or you're an SDR that's going to be promoted into the role sometime, hopefully, I really can't emphasize enough the value of truly getting to know your team members. What motivates them? What's been their past relationship with other managers? How good are they at managing their own time? And what do their kind of future career goals look like as well? I think kind of understanding these things and really letting your team know that you're there to coach and support them is really important for building a culture of learning and growth, and also accountability and ownership. In terms of kind of upskilling your team, I also think it's actually a pretty kind of big transition from inbound to outbound. Your reps are going to go from a place where they're talking to prospects that have proactively reached out to them, to one where, frankly, people will tell you anything they can to get you off the phone or to stop emailing them. I actually had a look through our team Slack channel to find some of the highlights that we had this year. And this includes someone actually barking like a dog to get one of my reps off the phone. No joke, I have the recording. And another highlight was a reply from someone called April Birch who said, find me some properties in Fort Lauderdale, followed by another email that said, a 3-bedroom condo with a pool in the backyard, you're doing a great job. The good news is, what I've kind of learned this year is that when you're moving your reps from inbound to outbound, they're already going to have a pretty good level of confidence talking on the phone, as well as a really deep product knowledge as well. So whether you're the SDR yourself or the manager, the key is to kind of get really good at getting prospects curious early on the phone, and also being able to just jump back on the horse as well once you face rejection. Coaching is also my best friend or my Frodo to my Samwise, and at Whereby we try to make this a really regular thing that happens, not just in a kind of weekly call review. So one thing that we've set up that's been quite successful is a Slack channel where all of our cold call recordings are fed into. When a rep's kind of jumped off the phone, they've had a pretty tough, objection that they've faced, or they've actually had a call where they're really proud of the outcome, we can then kind of jump on a Whereby call or have a conversation on Slack to actually talk through that in real time. If you're also managing a remote first team like me, there's a huge plus to actually get SDRs to listen to each other's calls, and they're going to be able to learn so much off each other. The second kind of key thing I talked about, like the Battle of Helm's Deep, is that getting your tech stack in place pretty early on is going to be really crucial for setting up success. I'm kind of speaking from personal experience, and I'm sure there's so many of you out there that feel my pain, but there's no way that an SDR is going to be able to sell or enjoy their job if they're spending 80% of their time in spreadsheets. But of course, I've worked at a couple of startups, and I know that you often are facing budget limitations. No one wants to go near an annual contract as well. So I just wanted to talk through a couple of things that I found have been really helpful when it comes to technology. First and foremost, building kind of an account or company list. So in the early stages, I definitely think you don't need to overthink this. Jump into a tool like LinkedIn Sales Nav or Crunchbase and just pull out the companies that look like a good fit in terms of things like the employee size, the industry, and the geography. And you can get an idea of what this looks like from your inbound leads. Onto prospecting as well, similar situations. Have a look at the leads that are coming to you through inbound, and you can just build a kind of target title list. Your reps can then jump into a tool like, again, LinkedIn Sales Nav, or if you have something like Cognism or Zoom or Lusher, they can just pull out kind of 5 contacts per company as a rule of thumb. When you're kind of doing this, I think creating focus both on the account side and the prospect side is going to be really important for creating focus for your team. And the phrase target everybody, close nobody will always ring very loudly in my ears. The last kind of key thing with your tech is that I think the sooner you can get those tools actually talking to each other through things like Chrome extensions, the better. An example of this on our team is that our reps can go into LinkedIn Sales Nav and actually pull those prospects directly into an outreach sequence using Zoom Info and Lusher's Chrome extensions. This can also be done with pretty basic tools like Reply.io, and it essentially means no more spreadsheets, which is the dream. Last but not least, I think before you've kind of figured out everything in step 1 and step 2, the SDRs and the managers should just chuck on a snorkel and a mask and jump into the deep end of Mount Doom. One of the biggest challenges I've found going into outbound is that SDRs essentially have no pipeline. You're kind of going from a stop-start. So the sooner you can kind of get prospects into sequences and actually reaching out to them, the faster you're really going to see some measurable results. So in terms of, sorry, I've completely lost my track of thought. When I first joined, the team at Whereby, one of the kind of first things we did was actually built out kind of 6 key sequences to get started. So this covered our 3 main industries, and we had a high touch and a low touch sequence for each, and we're still using these today. The high touch sequence is really reserved for your kind of top priority prospects, your decision makers. Like Sean said, customization is great here. You should be sending manual kind of personalized emails, doing lots of cold calls, LinkedIn tasks and videos and everything you can. And your lower touch sequence can just be kind of automatic emails for your lower priority prospects or if you can't find their phone number. Bit of a controversial thing to say, but I think that especially in the early stages, not giving SDRs kind of free rein to go and create their own sequences actually has massive advantages as well. I think kind of creating shared sequences that are used across the entire team is really going to speed up that process of really finding out what works from the data and actually improving your messaging as you go as well. So my time's kind of come to an end now, and you've probably all been sitting there thinking, well, shit, we've been doing this for a really long time. But for us at Whereby, kind of prioritizing these 3 things and really tying it together is what's really helped us build a successful outbound function. And our results have been measurable too. So we went from generating just 10K in ARR in Q1 for outbound pipeline to over 400K in Q2, with another 1.5 times growth in Q3. I'm really confident this has kind of unlocked a huge growth potential for us in our next stage at Whereby, and I really hope some of you can do the same as well. Thank you.
Well done, Maddy. One of the greatest pleasures I have is curating the speakers, and there's a lot of people that show a lot of interest in getting up on this stage, but I was so pleased with Maddy, and great talk. Thank you very much. So our final speaker, before we announce the top 50, is Rob, who's the Sales Development Manager for EMEA for SalesLoft. Rob's going to be talking about managing the pressure of sales, which we all know at this time of year is particularly high. Talking about pressure in sales and how it's created because of human nature. He's going to be sharing some techniques that he used directly with his team. Rob joined SalesLoft in November 2020, having previously spent time at Yext, Adobe, Salesforce, and Oracle. And SalesLoft are the leading sales engagement platform and also our diamond sponsor. So, Rob, you're up.
James. I feel you kind of had to give me a speaking spot since we're the Diamond sponsor, but all right. It's fantastic to be here, guys. It's fantastic to be here in person. The first time I did a sales confidence talk, I was at home on a Zoom. Like every salesperson, I had no clue how to work the filter, and everyone could see my spare room. After the talk, I got a message from a prospect telling me, really liked your talk, not going to buy Sales Loft, but where did you get a bedside locker? So hopefully today, I won't be talking about furniture. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about the pressures of sales and how we can cope with it and how I work with my team to do that. 2 reasons why I thought that was relevant today is, first of all, we're SDRs. We're put on KPIs all the time. We're put on monthly quotas. And it's also that lovely time of the year of Q4. Woohoo. Secondly, if I think about it, mental health. For years in sales, it's been neglected. There's been this level of machoism. You can't make mistakes. You can't be vulnerable. And looking across the room right now, I see so many people who are coming into sales targets for the first time. And it's tough. So today, I wanted to share with you guys what I do with my team to help calm down that pressure and relax and get back to that focused state of mind that we want to be in. It's called ABC. I know, creative. And I swear it's not ripping off Glengarry again, Ross. Everyone's sick of always be closing. It's a cognitive thinking technique that, with an acronym of activation, behavior, and consequence. And the reason why it's really important that it helps us understand how we feel, how we think, and how we react. So if we think about activation, it can be anything. But in this context, we're going to talk about the sales target. This is that intangible conversation we have with our friends who aren't in sales being like, sales is easy. You pick up a phone, you sell a couple of things. We all know that's not the case, and we've all had that question in our minds. How am I going to hit my target? Now, step 1 is quite easy, but you really have to commit to step 1 and not shy away from it. State, I've got a target, I've got a timeline, and it's going to be tough. Next, it leads us on to belief. Now, there's a really interesting concept called above or below the line, and it defines your natural mindset. If you're above the line, you're creative, you're positive, you see everything as fun. If you're below the line, you're closed off, you're rational, you feel like the world's against you. Unfortunately, our brains are naturally designed to think below the line. This was triggered originally to prevent us from physical threat. But the problem is now, because the way the world has changed, our brain actually can't determine the difference between a physical threat and a threat to something like our ego. And this leads us down into that dark place. If we think about it, we're in this industry that's consistently growing. The targets get bigger, the pressure gets more. And we recently did a study that only 60% of salespeople do that. So combine those aspects when you're naturally pulled down, puts us into a bad place. And that leads us on to the third part, consequence. This is when we are in those tough times. This is when we feel that massive weight on our back and we don't think anyone can help us. So what are we going to do? Are we going to say we're doomed? I really hope not. There's a couple of people here from my team that are kind of look at me with a bit of sweat on their face. I think let's challenge it, right? So the way you do it is in 3 stages. First, disrupt. Challenge that belief that you have. Work back up. Unfortunately, you can't go back up to activation. I've had it for 10 years trying to get my target down. The conversation has never gone away, so I'm going to go back down to belief. When I say challenge yourself, really take a bit of your own medicine, qualify yourself, understand where does this come from, why I'm going to do that. If you're a manager, my favorite line, and I can see the look right now, is show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that you are not going to hit your target and break it down smaller. This gets us into looking at when we say those questions like, I've got bad accounts, there's not enough time, Christmas around the corner. No, break it right down. Then we go to reframing. I know everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but everyone's here, control the controllables. What happens typically when you're in that sales panic is that you completely forget about everything. You start going to this mindset about not knowing what you are actually in control as an SDR. A crying example is one of the guys yesterday booked a meeting in for the 20th of December, and I kind of went, oh, good luck with that one. But what I did turn back to him and say, right, let's understand his business. Let's understand what they're trying to do. And we were able to rebook that meeting for 2 weeks' time because we were able to rechange the mental state that this person was thinking about what we can do for their business. Finally, it's reinforce. This is something that you can do as an individual. This is you can do as a colleague. This is what you can do as a manager. Boost them back up. There's a sports psychology analysis called the confidence tank. And these are memories that you have from your previous careers, your previous lives, that boost you back up. But don't just be, if you look around and you're trying to do this, don't wait on a manager. Don't wait on yourself. Help your team be there. Because there was a lovely fact I saw today, being kind costs absolutely nothing. And in this industry, it's so tough to manage that expectations. So if we do those, disrupt, reframe, and reinforce, we get to this beautiful mindset of a clear state of think, resilience, and we'll be able to hit those targets. Now, guys, all you got to do is practice it, reinforce it, and then go smash your target in Q4.
Amazing. It always feels good when the speakers are awesome. So another round of applause for our three speakers. So now the next stage is we're just going to have an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I'm going to invite all the speakers up and Shabri. And so do raise your hand. This is an opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity to ask the speakers some questions. We'll probably ask 4 or 5 questions, and then we're going to go into the rundown in the top 50, and then you can get back out there and network and have some drinks.
Okay, who's got a question? Yes, Sam. Hi.
SDR managers. So, do you think always giving a KPI for activity is the most effective thing for your SDR? So I can see it definitely for phone calls. I think it makes complete sense for phone calls. For emails, does it make sense to have an activity metric, or are you encouraging your SDR to maybe spam if the activity target's too high?
Okay, so does it make sense to have an email-based KPI? Rob, I'm going to go to you first.
Right. For me, I think it's not about having an email KPI. It's about understanding what success looks like, and that's across all platforms. I think without putting a base KPI in, people do get distracted. They don't understand what good is going to be. But for me, I think I really enforce, like, I've looked over the data every single quarter and changed that KPI to say, this was the most optimum route, if it's email, call, social. And I said, guys, I think this is the benchmark. And then I leave it free. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we'll adjust it. And I think that's when we talked about earlier about like adjusting consistory, what worked today, work tomorrow. But I think really just having a benchmark that someone can look at is useful, but don't be that micromanager that says you haven't sent 10,000 emails today.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Sean, I'm going to come to you because air calls predominantly phone, so I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that.
It's funny because I think exactly what you said, like there's a line, but then, did anyone watch Succession?
Yes.
Yeah. See, this week, Logan was like, there's a line, but then it's like all over the place. And that's kind of the thing with setting KPIs. Like, I think it's really useful when you come in as a BDR or SDR and you want to know what the benchmarks are, because like it's like a baseline for success. But there's so many other factors that can impact it, like the size of the companies you're reaching after, the vertical, the time. There's so much that can impact it. So it's good to work to there. It's something to look at, I think, especially if someone doesn't hit target. You can be like, well, you only sent 2 emails this month. But I think it's just there as a kind of marker for success. If you can do a lot less than that and still hit target, then more power to you. And like, tell me what you're doing, basically. Yeah.
Okay. And Maddy, as you scaled outbound, what do you think should be the best practice for looking at email metrics and KPIs?
Yeah, I think all these guys had good points, and the top ones for me are like, I think you mentioned like SDRing is kind of a science, so if you can actually work back from what you need to do and tie that to those activity metrics, I think as long as you kind of explain to your SDRs, like, this is why we have them, it's because we know this is kind of the bare minimum you need to do to be able to kind of get that success, and that's super important. But I think, as these guys said, like giving SDRs kind of free rein still to use channels that work for them the best. So I've got some SDRs that absolutely smash it on cold calls, and with them, I'm not mad if they don't kind of send a personal email to every single prospect, because that's just not their kind of top channel. I've got other SDRs who love getting creative and writing weird emails, and for them, that's perfectly fine as well. So I think, yeah, having that as like something for them to work towards, but giving them kind of creativity as well and free rein with the channels is important.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you all. Okay, next question. Yes.
So a lot of SDR managers struggling with recruitment, right? lots of people either looking to enter the market or like enter the job or maybe switch between jobs. But my interesting question on this is, what do you guys care about when you recruit?
Okay, good question. What do you care about when you recruit? Sean, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, it depends what you need in the team. Like I firstly survey the team. I look at the competencies that exist and what people are really good at. When I first came into Aircall, actually, it was interesting. Even though we're a phone company, I felt like we weren't making enough calls. And like to change that culture, I couldn't pick up the phone because I didn't have my own individual target. So I looked to hire people that were very used to making a lot of calls, because if they can see the outcome, which is success, then they're going to go for it. So that's like small things I look for, like what do we need in terms of competencies? And then in terms of experience, again, it honestly depends on the pressures of the team and balance of the market at that time. So like if we need pipeline for a market, we need a faster ramp up. So I might look for someone with experience. Whereas if we have a space in the team for someone less experienced, then we'll go for that. So I think it's just about balance, honestly.
Okay, that's interesting. Maddy, what about you? What do you look for with recruitment?
Yeah, I think for me, on top of the stuff around like experience and attributes, like just a genuine like passion to be wanting to work in sales. I think like personally, before I worked in sales, I didn't really understand what it was at all. But kind of through doing like an internship and like getting to understand a bit more about outbound, like I clearly realized this was something I was passionate about and like wanted to be a part of and to actually grow a career as well in sales. So I do think those people kind of stand out for me in recruitment. It's like you can really tell when someone wants to grow a career. And then for us at Whereby as well, I think like values and alignment with the company values is super important. We're like a remote first team, so trust is one of our values, and having people that are quite comfortable with like having ownership over their work and not having to have their hand held is really important for us as well. So really kind of trying to pick up on those things during the interviews too.
Okay, and lastly, Rob, what about you?
What they said. No, no, seriously, I think for me, the first thing that always stands out is someone that is actually themselves. I've had people from different industries come in, and sometimes people put up front and you're like, right, to what you said earlier, Sean, if they're going to put up front to you, what are they going to do in a call? So then people that are comfortable and be themselves. But then we look into other things, like, for example, have they looked at the leadership of this company and said, I want to be inspired by these people? Have they looked at the product and say, that fits me? And have they seen a career in the company that they can aspire to do? And the individuals that come in and have that knowledge, not only does it show good competency that they've done their homework, but I can really get behind someone who can see those three key areas.
Okay, I like that. All great things, and I hope that helped answer your question. We saw another question. Yes? Ooh, good question. What's coming next?
Any ideas?
All right, Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
Get your crystal ball out.
I think, to be honest, right now, I think we're not at an innovative state of changing. We're not at an innovative state of changing what we have with us now, but we are an incremental. One of the newest things that someone on my team is trying out is a video messaging that you can go down different paths. So if they ask, like, are you interested in prospecting or coaching, you click a button and you go to the next video and next video, like a virtual experience. And the amount of people that just goes, don't care about sales, Loft, tell me how you did that. It's ridiculous.
I like that. Well put. It's not about improvement. Yeah, it's about incremental. I like that. Sean?
I mean, if I was going to be like pretty boring-ish, I'd say LinkedIn voice note, because actually it's not the next one, but it works. So just use it if you don't. But I'm actually going to say the next one is the one that some people think. I read something recently on LinkedIn, like loads of people talking about how the phone is dead, long live the phone, and that's such a load of bollocks. Like if you're like, I'm not just saying this because I work for Aircall, but that would be convenient. If you practice it, if you're good at it, if you keep going over and over again at it, it's the best tool to use. If you make 100 calls, and you get 4 meetings from it, it's much better much better conversion rate than you get from any other thing. So even though it's not a new one, it's the one that people shouldn't forget about, and if it's not yours, it should be a new one.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a massive believer that the phone in itself is a pattern interrupt, because I just don't think enough people are using the phone. Yeah. And then lastly, Maddy, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, I think I've got a weird one, and it's definitely going to depend on what kind of company you work for, but I think like Whereby has product-led growth as like a massive component of our product. So, kind of a self-serve tool that you can use. And I think lots of businesses are kind of moving in that direction in SaaS as well. And I think it's just a tool for the SDRs to actually get people using your product or into your product faster than ever. The faster they can kind of have like an aha moment to even have a conversation with you about it, I think that's like a really powerful move. And what that looks like for each company will be different. But for us, like with video conferencing, we're thinking, how can we actually get people on our website kind of playing with the tool, and the SDRs can then reach out to these people to have a conversation, and they already kind of know a bit more about what we do as well.
Okay, I like that. I think all of these things are valid. I think it's just about like doing something better. I think the one thing we haven't talked about is direct mail, and I think that is having a huge impact in the market. Shout out to Ben, reached us. Hey. Also not a plug, but I think if used properly, I think direct mail, even as like something simple as a handwritten note, can make a massive impact. Okay, we've got time for one more question.
So are we saying no to copy-paste timing?
We're saying no to copy-paste timing, yeah. Okay, one more question. Ben.
How closely are you working with your international teams, and do you set different KPIs for your BDR teams, SDR teams, or do you have like global goals that you do?
Okay, interesting questions. The question from Ben was, how closely do you work with your global teams? Do you have global metrics, or do you work individually? Sean, I'm going to ask you, because you've just opened an office in London, so I'd be curious to know how you're thinking about setting that up.
We have, yeah. I mean, so the team has existed for a while, so like that's all flowing nicely. So we've got Paris, London, Berlin, New York, Sydney. Where we kind of work, we have EMEA, which works in itself. North America is very different in so many different ways in terms of the style of selling and the cadences and everything. So whilst we share best practice, we probably like do our own thing a little bit in terms of actually how we do things and how we set KPIs and everything. That honestly, EMEA is really tricky because you just move across a border. It could be from Nordics to Benelux to DAC, and we have, like, how can you tell? We have different data sets. So Lusher might have loads of numbers for one region, but not another. So then, but you're telling everyone to make the same number of calls for one region as another. And then you might have loads of marketing events in one, but you don't have them in another. So like, it's really tricky. In all honesty, in EMEA, we set the same KPIs, so if don't, and some people complain about it, but like, they all hit them. I wish I had a perfect answer, and it's something that I reverberate around in my head. There you go. The answer is no answer, Ben.
Okay, so no answer.
Yeah.
Maddy?
I'm not much help here because our team's
Rob.
not London.
Okay. I think it's not so much about setting the KPI, it's about how you set that KPI and who tells you what. So, fun fact, does anyone know here the rules about prospecting in Japan? You are not allowed to prospect someone senior than you in your job title, or you are blacklisted from that company. I learned that the hard way. And so when you're defining these strategies, you have your base, but it's so important that you have leadership and experience those markets, if they're internal or external, to guide you into things like, in the French market, you have to be polite at the opening. In the German market, you can't go email people past 6 o'clock. These little nuances are only going to come from in-market experience, and it's so important when you're defining those KPIs that you get that experience to define them.
It's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I learned, as I said, Samson do not like me.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much to our speakers for your amazing talks. I think this set the tone for the awards that we're about to go on to. So just a round of applause for the speakers again.
You and I. Hang up, stay up.
All right, okay.
Cool. So this is the way we're going to do this is quite simple because not everyone gets recognised, and so it can be a little bit upsetting sitting there. You have to wait till next year if you're not on the list. So the way we're going to do this is we're literally going to put up the slides in 10, and if you see your name, we're going to ask you to stand up, and then we'll just be a general round of applause. And then we get to the top 10. Shabri and I will announce the top 10 SDR leaders. So just, you want to know how this is all gathered. So generally those that have been ranked the highest got nominations not just from their SDRs, but also other peers in their business. So there was a huge amount of advocacy and drum beating going across their company to get the nominations. Then we look at the data and we compare it with some of the company growth data like Crunchbase, and we try and gauge the rankings of growth of some companies versus others. And then we make sure everyone that's on the list has obviously got positive sentiment in the market based on what's been said about them. So this is the top 50 SDR leaders. If you see your name, as I said, stand up. So if we got any of the first 10, a round of applause.
Stand up.
Keep clapping. Stand up if you see your name. Well done. Woo! Well done, Richard. Keep clapping. Let's have another round of applause. Avina's in the house. Well done, Bem. Keep going. Well done, Williams. Well done, Dan. Well done, Marcus. All right. So for the final 10, let's read them out. So we got in 10.
Okay,
if you come up to the stage,
come
Rob,
up on stage.
come up to the stage. Who's the next?
Rob from Sales Loft.
Yeah, come up to the stage.
Mark O'Brien from SAP.
Nadine Simmons from Unit 4.
Tom LeCure from Sneak.
Jared Pinson from PatSnap.
Luma Carmel from Elation.
Jennifer Hicks from Gearset.
Jarina Back from CrowdStrike.
Sean Hayes from Aircall. And this year's number 1, Denisa Moray, Content Squared. So we only got 2 of you. Jack, let's get a photo. The award is recognition and pride.
Yeah. If you were called out from the top 50, then come up on stage. Ben, come up. Charla, come up on stage.
Go on, all the top 50, come up to the stage.
Sam, come up. If you were top 50, come up. Congratulations to our top 50 SDR managers. Come up if you were called up. Congratulations. Congratulations. I'm just gonna.
Hold on.
Hey, one final round of applause for our top 50.